welcome to this week's Kish Podcast. I'm Tony Scott.
And I'm Eimear McCormack.
This week on the podcast, we're going to talk about a subject that we both love. We both love intimately. Food.
Yes, we are the ultimate foodies, I think, when it comes to food, really. And that's the reason why we are speaking to somebody who knows quite a lot about the restaurant industry in Ireland.
And how it could probably suffer. And I know some restaurants have suffered. Some have closed permanently. I saw on Twitter a lot of posts of restaurants closing permanently because of the restrictions that have been laid down for the COVID-19.
I don't think it's a case of some restaurants. I think all restaurants and food outlets have suffered unbelievably badly.
Yes, but not all have closed.
No, not all have closed, and not all of them either have opened for a takeout service. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you look at numbers and when you look at costings and you look at how you can make things work, you know, as a business owner myself, I just don't know how these people do it, you know?
And I mean, some of them, it probably won't pay them to do takeaway service.
Not at all. Think about it, right? You look at the likes of Just Eat and you look at Deliveroo, right? The two major competitors in the Irish market for delivery services. No matter if you are using Just Eat to just get the orders into your restaurant, you're talking about a percentage of 14 to 15%, right? On just getting the orders in, as in for you just to be listed on their website and you fulfill the order by having your own delivery driver. Then if you use the likes of Just Eat or Deliveroo in order to manage that service for you in terms of the delivery, so getting the order in and the delivery service, you're talking 30%.
Wow.
So, you know, you think about when you have your staff in the kitchen, you have your food from the producers, you have your electricity, your gas, whatever it takes.
Your profits are minimal then.
Oh my God.
If any.
Well, if any, Tony, because I would suspect that many restaurant owners don't enjoy a 30% margin. And a lot of them are, you know, borrowing, let's say. So when I say borrowing, what I mean is trading off one or the other. So the delivery service is a great thing to have because it encourages more customers. It expands their reach. However, in the restaurant, they're making a little bit more profit, perhaps because they're eating in. The chances of an upsell is much higher. They could sell that extra bottle of wine, so they're increasing the value there. At the home delivery side of things, they're definitely not making money in that. And I can categorically tell you, absolutely not.
Unless your business is specifically designed for takeaways.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And in that instance, you probably would look after your own delivery service and get your own drivers in order to be profitable. But I guess that the avenue and the vehicle that Just Eat and Deliveroo offer is getting those orders in, not so that you're not spending a budget, as in a marketing budget, in order to promote your service, that when people log on because of convenience wise, and you have to remember people are lazy, so they at a click of their app or a button or whatever it is that they press, up comes all the restaurants in your vicinity. And I live in the heart of Dublin city centre, as you know, and we have an abundance of choice here in the south inner city.
Whereas I'm the heart in the countryside and I have nothing.
Yes, I know. Poverty, poor person down in Roscommon.
Poverty.
Yes. So, you know, restaurants are really struggling at this moment in time, Tony. I would encourage people, once they open, just to visit them and to order something and keep them going, because I know a lot of them are, some are personal friends of mine that own restaurants, and I know how hard they have it at the moment. You know,
and there's only so much you can of consumers who are shouting at the government saying, do something, why aren't you saving the restaurant, when the consumers aren't going in.
True. But Tony, maybe this is something that we will discuss after the interview with Adrian, whom you're going to introduce now in a moment. But,
I am.
I think it might be, because there's actually a follow-up since I recorded that interview with Adrian, that I think might be worthwhile noting, and then we can talk about how actually the numbers are going to work for these guys to open back up. So.
I do love when you tease me.
Yes. Moving along very swiftly.
Will we get down to the bones of this week's episode?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We'll find out what's happening after that. So, earlier on this week, Eimear got to chat to Adrian Cummins from the Restaurants Association of Ireland, and she found out exactly who he is.
Adrian Cummins is originally from a small village outside Portumna in East Galway. Big into hurling country. Grew up in a small pub. My mum had a post office, a small farm. Typical West of Ireland rural community business. Always involved in tourism and hospitality all my life. Went on to work with the Irish Farmers Association, was my first job. So I got straight into the art of lobbying and talking to people and communicating with on behalf of farmers. And then got a job in the area of marketing for a new hotel in Portumna over 20-something years ago, 25 years ago. Worked there for 7 years. Heavily involved in politics, had a run at it, didn't win, learnt a lot, advised the minister, and then went on to be to the post of chief executive of the Irish Hospitality Institute. Moved on then prior to my current position as chief executive of the Association of Language Schools and Private Colleges, and then 2009 was headhunted to become the chief executive of the Restaurants Association of Ireland, which is an association that is 50 years in its existence this year. I started in 2009 at the beginning of the last recession, so I never thought I'd have to go through another recession, but here we go again.
And right now, Adrian, we're in a lot of difficulty with the restaurants in Ireland as a direct result of COVID-19. There's lots of people, I suppose, consumers wondering what that experience is going to be like. Is it worthwhile in even going out to a restaurant with the restrictions that are due to be imposed in terms of the 2 meters and all of that sort of stuff? So what do you think of all of that?
So first of all, everybody should go to a restaurant. It would be remiss of me to say that they shouldn't. Absolutely they should. It will be the safest social outlet to go to, in my opinion. People will go into a restaurant, they'll go in, it'll be sit in, sit down, they'll enjoy great food, great Irish food, and we want to get that 2 meter reduced to 1 meter because it's not viable for us to open. Because if you open a restaurant on 2 meters, obviously your floor capacity reduces and it's 4 times of a difference. So from 2 meters, you're at 20% capacity. On 1 meter, you're on about 8% capacity. So that's 4 times, or 80% capacity. That's about 4 times the square footage that you're working off of. So it's absolutely phenomenally important for our sector to get to 1 meter. And we're not the only country in the world that's doing this and looking for it. Countries like Denmark, Austria, Finland, Norway, Singapore, all are at 1 meter. We're kind of an outlier, like the UK, and even as we speak here, they're looking at reducing it as well. So Ireland needs to step up to the plate, get us in line with the international best practice, and let's get on with opening businesses so that we can pay for a health service, because the taxes that are raised through employment taxes, VAT, and all the other taxes that we pay go to pay for our frontline services, and they need to be supported as well.
The thing about it is, Adrian, how are the numbers going to work for a restaurant? Weren't restaurants under pressure prior to this? And then adding this on top of it, what's that going to be like for the business owner?
Prior to COVID, our big ask would have been to reduce the VAT rate from 13.5% down to 9%. So that was at a time where you had a functioning economy, but the cost of doing business was phenomenal. We have a very high labour cost. So, for example, if you take 100 as your baseline, so of 100 euros, 36 euros go on wage costs. Your taxation then is 13.5%, so that's 13 euros 50. Then you have your rent costs, which is one of the highest in Europe now at the moment. 90% of businesses in Europe, or in businesses in restaurants in Ireland, are rented, and we saw a phenomenal increase in rent costs over the last number of years. And then you have your input costs and all of the other fixed costs as well. So commercial rates as well, and insurance costs. So obviously the margins in our industry is very, very small. And the margin, if you talk to any restaurant owner, the margins were around 4 or 5%. So now you throw COVID into it. It's really, really turned our industry upside down. So the asks for us is, besides your 2 meters, your ask is to reduce that VAT rate down. We want to go to 0. There is a question around whether Europe would allow us to do that. But let's just put it out there. Europe hasn't been friendly or helpful to small business in any part of Europe at the moment, the European Commission. So state aid rules are out the window. And why shouldn't VAT rules for the worst affected sectors like retail and hospitality be amended so we can go to 0% during an emergency? So we would like to go to 0. Commercial rates. So the average rates for a small restaurant could be 10,000, 20,000. A lot of business will say, what are you getting for it? You know, we need to make it, get rid of those charges that are, what we're trying to do is get people back to work.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you need to stimulate the economy, get our industry up and running, make it easy for business people to open their shutters and create economic activity. And in doing so, the government can enable that for us very simply in a range of measures.
As a business owner myself, I've got my VAT returns to do from January until April. Maybe you've deferred the payment until the end of June. You have to now buy your fresh produce in order to sell in your restaurant, which you're going to have to pay back to the supplier if you're lucky to get 30 days credit on it. And then I also now have an extra thing thrown in there, which is all of the Perspex glass and all the notifications. Where are people going to get the money from?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, because the amount of supports that we've been offered so far is, I'd say, about 10% of what's required. So, for example, if you pay rates, you get to a maximum of 10,000 euros grant to get restarted. So if you're a big business and you have a lot of investment, what do you do then? You're probably stretched with your loans. Your loans are at 3.5%, 4%, which is, that's another day's work about trying to get low interest loans from at ECB rates, European Central Bank rates, where France and other countries are getting these. They have a better way of helping their businesses. And if you look at the 3 sectors that haven't really, they have skin in the game, but they haven't really stepped up to the plate in this emergency to really help all businesses, including our sector: the banks, insurance, and landlords. Those are the 3. And if those 3, if whoever is the new minister for finance, business, whatever, they need to tackle those 3 sectors and bring really, really proactive, imaginative measures to support all types of businesses, including our sector. Because at the moment, we have 50% unemployment for youth unemployment at the moment. So every second young person doesn't have a job. You have 1 million people social welfare. You have about 210,000 people are unemployed in tourism and hospitality. That is, off the charts. And our industry can get people back to work really, really fast because we're labor intensive. We can get large volume of people. So an average restaurant would have 20 people working in the restaurant. So you're going from, on a street, you could be going from 0 people in hospitality to 500 people all in one go. So if you imagine all those streets, those villages, those towns all over Ireland, we can really get a lot of people back to work really, really fast. That's what you need to do, because otherwise it's going to be very, very dark and gloomy for the entire economy if we don't start to get imaginative measures in place very, very fast.
But there are two sides to that. There are one in terms of getting people back to work really quickly, which we all want to do. And then there's the other thing about getting your customers and your clients back into the restaurants. Now, I note this week on Joe Duffy, and last week, I think it may have been also mentioned, the likes of sandwich boards being outside premises to let people know in high tourist area where there are no tourists right now, trying to promote the fact that their business is open for people to come in and have a coffee, for people to get a takeaway lunch. And they have members of Dublin City Council going around and say, hey, you don't have planning permission for that sandwich board, get it in and we'll fine you. So that's counterproductive. So you got Heather Humphreys shouting and saying, we need to get back to work, we're going to put in all these supports and so on and so forth. But then you've got your local authority who's then putting an objection and putting a fence up against those local restaurants who are trying their best to get back to work.
Yes, you're correct, because we have always advocated that local authorities have a major role to play here. Support businesses, don't knock businesses. So that goes on commercial rates. That goes on opening up public spaces for outdoor street furniture. There's some local authorities that they're very, very good, and some are extremely, extremely bad, and some haven't even thought about it yet. So, and here's where you need a minister that says he currently is in charge of local authorities. Write to every local authority and say, listen, I need 1,000 seat spaces in your local authority opened up for outdoor dining in the next month, and get it done. But you don't have that type of, get up and go and get it done, make it happen. Because if you have businesses that are still closed, you're not going to get commercial rates, nor will you have any hope of them giving you commercial rates into the future. Regulatory burden and charges and people, there's a cottage industry at the moment for within state organizations and agencies and whatever to dream up of rules and regulations. And every time you dream up a rule, it costs a business something. Time is money. So the time to fill out a form, time, they have to go and pay for it sometimes. More than likely, they will have to pay for it. And then if they're not compliant, they're going back to check it every time as well. So all of that sort of absolute nonsense needs to be moved to one side. Look at all that red tape and making sure that we merge it all into either one inspectorate, and make it easy for people to do, put it online, forget all the paperwork, and make it very, very cost effective.
Get on with it.
Get on with it. And there's nothing as frustrating as for a business owner. He opens his door on day one, and the second half of day one, he gets 5 inspections from 5 different inspectors because they've been sitting on their backside for the last three months, making sure they're going to make themselves busy to make themselves relevant for the next number of weeks ahead. I mean, that really annoys businesses at the moment. They're out there trying to save their business and ultimately probably trying to save their home, because their home is probably mortgaged against their business. And that's another whole ball game at the moment around personal guarantees. So when that inspector goes in, think about what you're doing. Think about the stress levels you're putting a business owner under. And everybody wants to do the right thing, but cut us a bit of slack for the next 6 months at least.
And do you not think that ultimately the problem is, though, Adrian, that the people who are making decisions about businesses going back into the economy don't know a lot about business, and they don't know how the inner workings of a business actually work?
Absolutely. 100% agree with you, Eimear. And you can see from the temporary wage supplement scheme, we're on version, what are we on, 15 at the moment? If they sat down with the trade representative bodies on day one and talked to us face to face, which they didn't do, you wouldn't have version 15 now, which they had to amend 15 times because people found out that there was anomalies as we go along. That's real. You find that type of a system in some developing third world countries, because they know no better. But in Ireland, we should know better. We are in the European Union. We are well advanced, but when it comes to helping small business and developing schemes for them, we're not very good at it. So, for example, the temporary work wage supplement scheme, seasonal workers has been left out of it. So that means that every person that wants to get back into the hospitality industry in our summer season, those businesses, what are they going to do? They're in no man's land at the moment. So instead of making it happen, fix it, solve the problem, no, we'll drag on and keep going the way we're going.
And it's inevitable that these businesses and restaurants that are going to be reopening are going to be down more than 25% in their trade. Do you believe that the wage subsidy scheme should be extended further than what is anticipated in August in order to get the economy kicked back started again and go easy on business owners who are trying their best to get back on their feet?
Absolutely. And if you were putting your top 5 asks, it's number 1. So right. Number 1, the temporary wage supplement scheme needs to be continued on, specifically for hospitality, and probably you would throw in certain parts of retail there as well. So they need to, I know August is only 8 weeks away. So we need to fix that, make that happen so that we're not 2 weeks before the mid-August when it runs out, and we have a fit for purpose wage supplement scheme that takes into consideration the first and worst hit sectors, and also those that are labor intensive. So what happens if you don't help those businesses on? They're going to be those employees will be laid off permanently. Then now it's the state's full responsibility for those staff that will be laid off permanently. And that's where we don't want to do that. We want to protect our workers, have them in a safe working environment, give them a job so they can provide for their families, pay their rent, do whatever. And that's what we want to do.
It's a very, very worrying time, a very, very worrying time. And I don't think it's going to be as clear cut to get the country restarted as to what a lot of people think it is going to be. We are a nation that's very reliant on tourism. We are now switching almost 100%, I think would be at the moment, to domestic tourism. I know the Irish people will always back Irish businesses, but really more than any other time in our lives, we really need people to to throw on that Irish jersey and come and support local businesses, because people don't realise, I think, to a certain degree, that local businesses that are employing, between 5 and 20 people are the lifeblood of this country. And we have to get out there, and we really, really have to support these local businesses, our hotels and so on and so forth. If you were in charge and you're the COVID restart minister for business, what would you do for the sector?
So what would I do? I would first of all set up I'd have a task force that will work, and then the first 30 days, they would come up, they would have a range of measures ready to go. So in a month's time, they'd have agreed taxation, grants, I'd have insurance, and I'd look at as the kind of your first main priorities. So on the taxation level, I would advocate to reduce tax for hospitality down to 0. If it's not 0, we land at 5, no higher than 5. On grants, I would give real tangible restart grants that pays legacy debt for all those suppliers that are due money. The infrastructure costs to get businesses up and running. And I'd also look at ECB rate loans that would restructure current loans on a long-term basis for businesses, and actually set up a state-owned business bank that can go to the ECB and get money and then give it out to businesses at ECB rates. That's what I would do. You have the strategic investment bank here in Ireland, but I'd make that more infrastructure, business orientated, and get it up and running as quickly as possible, and take on the commercial banks. And competition is healthy, and that's what I would do.
And Adrian, you mentioned loans there, and I would presume within your industry there are a lot of businesses with loans. Do you have any survey results from your members in relation to that?
Yeah, so effectively, I'll just give you one anecdotal business.
Sure.
Pub restaurant, tourist location, southwest of the country. In order for him to get up and running, he needs €100,000 overdraft facility or liquidity to get himself ready for the season. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's to pay his legacy debt and get himself ready for the season ahead. So he probably only got 10 grand max of a restart grant from the government. So where does he get the 90,000 from? He's already got loans already. So like he doesn't want another 4.5% loan from a bank or Microfinance Ireland or whatever scheme that the Department of Business came up with that isn't worthy of, because there has been a couple of billion, I think, put forward in loans from the Department of Business. Only 17 million has been drawn down. That just shows you that it's not working.
But sure, it's not, because the numbers don't work. So if you were getting a higher extra percentage put on top, if you go to Microfinance Ireland, and I'm just using them as an example, there are other lenders available there, but you're not getting the rate you're getting from the ECB. So how is that fair? Somebody else is profiteering on it. And then the biggest thing out of all of this is debt. You're adding to the debt you already owe. So how does one actually ever get out of that debt? It's a vicious circle.
So we in the association, like other trade organisations, have signed up to the principles of the SME recovery plan that John Moore, and former Finance Secretary General, has developed on behalf of SMEs to put forward to the government.
Mm-hmm. And
the principles around it is, it's a 15 billion, let's call it a bailout package. So you go to the European Central Bank and you get low interest loans for debt relief for Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
You also tap into the Disaster Relief Fund, which is a European fund that is for earthquakes or whatever in the Mediterranean country. But we can tap into this because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring it back to Ireland. You process it through a vehicle that is set up to deliver on behalf for businesses, and they apply for it, and you can restructure their loans into the future and pay off their legacy debt. That's the way I would do it. But there is a resistance by the Department of Finance to do this. But there's no other show in town, in my opinion.
Why do you think they are resistant towards that, Adrian?
Because it's probably because that they didn't think of it. Is probably the attitude sometimes in Ireland. Because we didn't think of it, we're not going to accept it. And it's because the SME sector is coming with the plan. So usually in Ireland, if somebody comes with a plan, usually civil servants don't really like to adapt it. They want their own. They want to have thought of it internally. And I'm just saying it as it is. I've seen it for the last 20 years over in dealing with all forms of government and the civil service. But, you know, we're in an emergency. This is it. It's equivalent to how the banks were bailed out. And remember, the Irish banks were bailed out by the Irish people. And now it's important that the Irish banks bail out the Irish people. Yeah. More so Irish businesses. And as you said earlier on, there's people making a lot of money on the back of this crisis. So Paddy is after finding out very, very quickly that ECB rates is below 1%, like in negative percentage terms. And the banks are making 4.5% on the backs of suffering businesses. So like something needs to give very, very quickly here. And I don't think people are going to stand for it. That's why it's important that we move forward to create a state-owned business bank to be the vehicle to support and small business across the country.
You're right, Adrian. And I think, there's a lot of people out there that were very afraid of COVID-19 affecting themselves and their family, and rightly so. But ultimately, I think within the business community, people weren't necessarily afraid per se of the actual virus. It's the aftermath, because you can't just turn off an economy and turn it back on again like you do a computer. And I think that there are so many unanswered questions within how things are going to work. And it's not really how well the government has performed during COVID-19 from a health perspective. It's really how they're going to perform in terms of helping businesses get back on their feet and to start trading. This is where they have to really, really shine now, and not, in relation to health anymore. And this would, in my belief, this is where either jobs are going to be lost or jobs are going to be saved. And ultimately, we really, 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 really need to be focusing towards that. If you had a message out there to consumers, what would you say to them?
What I would say to consumers is that you've been cooped up indoors for a long time. Now is the time to get out, spend money, go to restaurants, go to cafes, hospitality, take a holiday, take a break. Go somewhere in the country, discover Ireland, discover new places around Ireland. You may wanted to go to Spain this year or Mediterranean or holidays, but now is the time to put on the green jersey and support local businesses and communities and villages and towns right around Ireland. And there's a lot to say about our country, and I actually am very, very proud of the way Ireland has stepped up to the challenge of COVID. We can be proud of our frontline services, proud of all parts of how we dealt with COVID. We've learned lessons along the way, and that's, we'll learn for the future. COVID is here for the next possibly months, years ahead. We have to deal with it. But the immediate challenges is to get our economy up and running. And we can only do so through consumers and gaining the trust of consumers as well. And I'd say this to business owners, we have to do the right thing as well. We need to make sure that our consumers and our customers feel safe, welcome, and they have an enjoyable experience when they go out.
Absolutely. And one final question, Adrian, because I know you're rushing off to another meeting. Do you worry about a second wave hitting this country for your members?
I do. No point in saying that I don't, and no point in saying that it won't happen. It could happen. The medics say there's a probable chance that it will happen. I think we're better prepared for a second wave if it does happen. I think that it's important that we don't shut down the entire economy. That's what we would be advocating for. And I think important that we have a world-class track and trace system and testing in place for every citizen in this country and any visitor that comes into Ireland, that it is functional, cost-effective, and make sure that we protect our communities, our families, and our citizens right across the country. But I think if we do that, we have a fighting chance. Adrian
Cummins from the Restaurant Association of Ireland, thank you very, very much for your time, and the best of luck with your reopening for all of your members.
Thank you, Eimear. Thank you.
Well, Eimear, it looks like uncertain times for restaurants in the country.
Without a shred of a doubt. And since recording that interview, Tony, these wonderful reports came out, or recommendation rather came out from Fáilte Ireland, which I question, how are they an authority on reopening Ireland? Don't understand.
Well, that's the thing. Are these rules? Are these guidelines?
No idea.
What are they?
And I think that if you were to ask any restaurant owner, I really don't think that they'd know either. In these new rules, Tony, you can only spend 90 minutes in a particular premises that serves food. So in a restaurant or being in a bar that serves food, 90 minutes. So as soon as your 90 minutes are up, you're out the gap and somebody else is coming in, right? You've got 15 minutes to turn the table. So 15 minutes to sanitize and the whole lot before you get the
Ghostbusters in with all the sprays and everything.
Yes. And Tony, God forbid you or one of your party end up getting the coronavirus. somebody from the bar or restaurant will call you to say, hey, Tony, you were in the bar on such date. You are the lead person. So we're contacting you to let you know that there is an outbreak. Well, first off, how do you know it actually originated there? And is your insurance company going to cover you if you turn around and say, well, I'm going to sue you because I went into that restaurant on good intent that I was going to enjoy a meal. I did not intend to coming out with a dose of coronavirus. There's so many unknowns. Like, this is just ridiculous. And also, what's to stop you and your family? Let's say you got a really large family and you all go out for a really nice meal because you haven't seen each other in months and months. Mm-hmm. You go into one restaurant and maybe your bill is up at €500 or €600. You've got 12 or 15 people in your party. Is the restaurant owner or the bar owner going to come over and say, now, Tony, the 90 minutes are up, out the gap with you? I don't think so. I mean, if you're spending a really good amount of money, you're happy as the restaurant owner, or the bar owner, I'm not going to throw you out. And where am I going to throw you out to, though? Because you can go across the road and you can
another restaurant.
To another bar or another restaurant that's serving food, and you can order a meal. It must be a minimum of €9, okay?
Who came up with that price?
I don't know. €9. Like, come on. And can I ask you a question, Tony? This is what really irritates me on behalf of the restaurant and bar owners out there. Who is actually coming up with these rules? Because they're far from business owners. It's number one, unachievable. It's number two, ridiculous. Number three, it makes no sense whatsoever. Everyone's going around and saying that the government done such a wonderful job with, the pandemic. And there is, they've done a good job. Have they done a fantastic job? No, they haven't.
It wasn't just the government. It was the people.
The regulation and the recommendations came from, further afield from the
World Health Organization.
The WHO. Not the band, the WHO. And then, at the end of the day, my thoughts on the government on doing a good job is they did an okay job. They didn't do a fantastic job. That sounds very Donald Trump there. But they didn't do a fantastic job. And now, and I've always said it right from the very, very start, I was never worried about the coronavirus per se. Now, thankfully, touch wood, that none of my family or friends have contracted the virus. And I can say that from this perspective, different for somebody listening that had coronavirus. Yeah. But as a business owner, I was always more concerned with the aftermath, with the tsunami of issues and so on that we would experience in the country. Just like that, as we go through the phases of reopening, we're now seeing the issues in relation to turning off an economy. Now, bear in mind, we weren't ordered to close our businesses. We were requested to close our businesses. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why the bars...
It wasn't brought into law.
No, and this is the reason why the pubs and the insurance companies have walked away, because it wasn't an order on behalf of the government. But we'd done it in the interest of society and this virus and so on, and health, public health. What have these people been doing for 15 odd weeks in Leinster House, or at home, or on Zoom calls, or on Skype calls, or whatever way in which they're communicating? They were still doing a job. Why wasn't there a task force set up full of business owners that looked at it from a logical point of view and an operational point of view, which is even more important?
How many tests were done in these premises?
Well, this is the thing, who is regulating the reopening strategy? These restaurants, as I spoke with Adrian about, these restaurants have now no income for 3-4 months in some instances. Where are they going to get the money to restart their businesses? We're putting in all the protocols. Who's going to police them? I know restaurant owners, and bar owners especially as well, have had so much to think about. They've had upset, they've had worry, they've had anxiety, no doubt, about how they're going to, number one, reopen. And I'm sure...
It's the unknown.
And we spoke as well, Tony, just before recording this, that you said you know of restaurants that won't be reopening. Yeah. And I know restaurants that won't reopen. And I know one particular restaurant owner that I spoke with today said that he is going to keep going the way he's going, as in doing a takeaway service, collection service. It's not. But maybe it's
working for them.
It is, but the problem is his premises is quite small. So how is he going to socially distance people in a tiny premises? It would not be worth it.
No.
He'd make no money. He'd probably make more money in the way he's doing it now than what he would actually reopening the restaurant.
It's not like, say, like a Wetherspoons,
No.
which have massive floor space.
Yes.
They're in a way already prepared for something like this because you can order on your app on your mobile phone. You don't have to have contact with a member of staff until maybe they drop their drinks, or maybe they could set up a thing where there's a collection point for your food or drinks that you go up and get that and then go back to your table.
Well, where's the experience, Tony?
That's what's going to happen. Is there is no experience until this vaccine is finally discovered.
Because for me, that is an experience. I wouldn't bother going to a restaurant.
Great interview, by the way. Thank you. Well done.
No, thank you. And I'd like to just finish the episode, if possible, to mark this episode with the absolutely tragic passing of Detective Garda Colm Horkin, who is a native of Charlestown in my county of Mayo, who tragically lost his life last week to a shooting that happened while he was on duty. You never expect that when you go out and do your job to not come home. As a member of An Garda Síochána, and my thoughts and prayers are with his family and indeed all his colleagues around the country who done a remarkable guard of honour outside their Garda stations around the country today. And it's lovely to see a mark of respect in terms of the flag flying at half-mast around the country for Colm. And we'd like to extend our sympathies here on the Kish Podcast to all serving members of An Garda Síochána and to all the friends and family of Colm Horkin.
And to add to that, given everything that's going on in the world, at least as a country, we could say we're a country that respects our police force.
Absolutely.
And there's like this mutual respect we have for the Gardaí. Absolutely.
And I think it's a very important thing. You know, they're peacekeepers. They are unarmed. In Colm's instance, he's a detective, so he did carry a firearm. Ultimately, members of the force...
The general day-to-day Gardaí
don't. No.
Completely unarmed.
No, they don't. And, you know, we need to remember that if you're ever in trouble, who are you going to call? And you are going to call your local guard station and you're going to ask for assistance. And they do a great job. And
as I've done many times.
So, Tony, until next week. Oh, next week. Next week, did I hear you say? Did I hear you say next week, Tony?
No, you said next week. I didn't even open my mouth.
You want to know about next week, though, don't you?
Yeah, we want to know about next week.
Well, you do, actually, because you're the one that organised it, so...
Yes, I've organised it. June, of course, is Pride Month. And it's another thing that has been cancelled, the actual physical celebrations of it. And I thought, we can't let the month go without celebrating it. And, you know, your graphic designer is so good with her colourful graphics. You know, I'm sure we can have a rainbow version of it. So we've got someone who, how would I describe him?
Controversial.
He's controversial. He's popular. He is also working in the hospitality sector, so he'll have a lot to say about today's podcast and what we've been talking about. But he is, of course, Paul V. Stenson from the Charleville Lodge and the White Moose Cafe. You've been to the White Moose Cafe?
Yes, I have. I have been for lunch one time. And yeah, I was very busy the day I was there, and the food was good, and the company was even greater.
And were they going around with the phone filming everything?
No, not while I was there, no.
Okay, so you had a nice peaceful lunch.
I did, but I do follow them on social media. I do follow Paul personally on his Insta, and I do.
He's a fellow Mayoine. Or is he Mayo?
No, he's Dublin, but he spends a lot of time in Mayo and Achill, out in Achill Island, which is Mum and Dad. So he would go out there quite often. So we'll claim him. We'll claim him. We'll say you're a bit of Mayo in you.
Now, I'm not promising anything, but he may not be the only person that we have next week.
Oh.
There may be a surprise for you.
Oh.
Someone that I know that you are a fan of.
Somebody I am a fan of.
Yeah, they are a bit of a celebrity.
Male or female?
Female.
Oh. Musician?
And I'm saying no more.
Musician?
Say no more. Say no more.
Musician?
Yeah, there is music involved, but that's all.
Oh no, hang on. There's music involved, or?
I'm not saying a thing.
It's a Wallace Bird.
It's not Wallace. We've had Wallace Bird.
Yes, we have.
She'll be back in series 5.
Who else? Tony.
Not saying a thing.
You can't end the episode and not tell me.
We're not ending the episode on that. We're ending the episode on the let's leave reviews bit that we do.
Yeah. Look, we get a lot of messages on social media about people sending us private messages and saying they've really enjoyed the show. And that is amazing. And we love it. Absolutely. 100%. But if you can leave us a review, please leave us a review. I know we say it at the end of every episode.
You
I
do.
promise we'll stop next week. I promise
I don't like bothering you.
That's a lie.
Leave a review if you want to leave a review. Eimear doesn't actually know where you live as much as she threatens.
I know people. Anyway, just leave a review, please, if you can. And thank you, as always, for amazing feedback. We received great feedback last week with our cancer special. And yes, which was really good.
Incredible.
And Pat's episode as well of Pat Phelan.
Flying through the roof. Leave
a review if you can. If you don't want to, that's okay. Just continue to send messages to us so our egos can so slightly grow.
But yours, I don't really have an ego.
I'm only joking. I don't have an ego either. Listen, Tony, until next week, and the surprise better happen now. Otherwise, I'm going to be deflated.
I hope it does, because I spoke to the PR person who looks after her, and they've been in touch.
Oh, she's got a PR person, so she is actually mediocre, is she? Yeah.
She's not mediocre.
She's from Mayo.
She's not from Mayo, she's from Dublin.
Oh my God, I think I know who it is.
I'm not telling you. Lips sealed.
Okay, we'll talk about it just after. Thank you very much for listening to the Kish Podcast. You've been amazing. No, you haven't been amazing.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for listening to the Kish Podcast.
I wonder how many people get to this stage of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going
Shocking.
No,
don't.
It's going on it. If you're wondering what I'm talking about now, it's the bit that I've deleted that you can't hear because we've deleted it.
Don't put that up.
I'll put it up if I want.
Tony, until next week, mind yourself.
And you, take care of yourself.
Keep her between the ditches.
Always. I don't even have a car.
Good luck.